all the games I used to play in my younger, wilder days. The game of clubs and teas had never crossed my mind. But after some discussion with my closest, dearest friends, I decided...
Welcome into the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast. I'm Andrew Putters with my friend Joe Nicely from Rotoballer.com, lead golf editor up there. Joe, we've had just such a long break. I'm glad to get it going again. This is the second tournament of the fall swing. We had last week off for the Ryder Cup. Joe, Rotoballer.com, what do y'all got going on for the future of the 2021-2022 season first? And how you doing, man?
Doing good, AP. Good to see you. Yeah, man, it's kind of been a start and stop type thing, but we're getting going now with the second event of this fall swing, the Sanderson Farms Championship. And we got a couple of months straight, solid of golf. So look forward to seeing you all. Hope you'll check us out throughout the swing season. But yeah, man, you mentioned what we got going on over at Rotoballer. Now's the best time of year to visit us over there. You can go to rotoballer.com, PGA Premium Package, amazing staff. Spencer Aguiar, Andy Lack, Josh Bennett, you and I feel like we did a tremendous job over there. And it's our cheapest price of the year. You can use my promo code NICE, N-I-C-E. And it takes you less than $65, and that $65 takes you through the 2022 Tour Championship. So, you know, almost a calendar year of great coverage. So we really encourage folks to go over there and check that out. We also got free content that you're welcome to look at every week, and we feel like it's a great deal and a great product.
That's right, Joe. So we had a week off. Everybody, football's getting going. We're kicking off this fall swing, like you said, 8 straight weeks of 8 straight tournaments. And Ryder Cup last week. I'm not going to say you could see it coming, but definitely thought from 1 to 12, they had a huge advantage. USA had a huge advantage. They were a 2-1 favorite. And let's be honest, if you get DJ Morikawa going at the top there, the rest of the stuff's going to fall into place. They're pretty, I'm not going to say unbeatable, but if they get everything working together, I say Rory's still probably number one as far as most talented. Rahm is most doubtedly the best player in the world, but it's like every time Europe tried to do anything, they got punched right in the face. USA made tons of putts. Patrick Cantlay, Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, it was unconscious. And I really felt the singles, it didn't even really matter. It was just going to happen. What was your overall opinion about the Ryder Cup? And by the way, Whistling Straits, completely different course, 4th week in September versus 2nd week in August, where we've seen it in the major rotation before on the PGA Championship. So what was your thoughts of the golf course, the golf tournament, Ryder Cup in general?
Yeah, man, love the golf course. I think it's a great place. Wish we saw more majors there. As for the kind of the actual Ryder Cup, felt like a little bit of a changing of the guard to me, Andrew. A lot of the European guys kind of feel like they're on the way out. You talk about Poulter, Sergio, Paul Casey. These are guys that we are probably seeing for the last time in the Ryder Cup, and they kind of stood for that era of European dominance, and it feels like they're on their way out. While as on the U.S. side of things, a really exciting, really talented young core over there. You mentioned Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, JT Spieth, Scotty Scheffler came up huge, beating John Rahm in singles. So it feels like things are kind of on the upswing for the U.S. But the next one's a couple years away, man. Lots of things can change. A lot of things can happen. It's felt like the U.S. team has been more talented for the last decade. It felt like a lopsided win like this was coming, but we kept seeing Europe kind of fight them off, and maybe those guys are just running out of gas. Kind of that old guard's fading out. So it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of team Europe puts out there in a couple of years, because it feels like there's going to be a lot of turnover on that side, where a lot of the U.S. team will likely stay pretty similar.
Yeah, I think it's probably, 3 years ago, maybe. I remember making the statement to a friend of mine with John Rahm coming up, and Rory there at pretty much dominance in his late 20s, early 30s. I was thinking, with Stenson, Rose, Casey, Sergio, that the U.S. was going to have a long, hard future in the Ryder Cup, because there was a time just 4 years ago that Stinson and Rose was unbeatable in any format as a team. There was a time that, of course, Sergio's still tough in that format. He's going to be tough for another period of time. He's still relatively young considering how much experience he has. Paul Casey's very solid. And with John Rahm there, like I said, he's like, what, 22 now? So 23. So I felt like that they were going to have a long, hard road. And like you said, though, it's like it's been flipped on its head. Cantlay's risen from second tier player to that upper echelon.
I think he's a mental killer too, man. I think he's kind of a silent, really big part of that team this year. It felt like.
And I know winning takes away a lot of sins, hides a lot of sins, but can we say it out loud that it's just a little different with that Patrick Reed there?
Yeah, for sure, man. I think, I mean, let's just be honest. There's a lot of guys in that room that probably don't care much for Patrick Reed. Can they play with him, go out and win with him? Sure. He's a tough competitor. But I think this team really kind of came together. You can maybe attribute that to Steve Stricker, who's kind of universally beloved, it feels like, in the golf community. So maybe you can attribute that to him a little bit. You can also, point to really, really smart, solid captain's picks, not getting crazy, not getting fancy. We know the names that were out there. A lot of people were tossing around Kevin Kisner, Kevin Na, guys of that nature. But they absolutely didn't belong on this team, on this golf course. So I felt like Stricker made some really good captain's picks, played things really smart, obviously had a good group, and it feels like the U.S. is on the upswing. We got some really good players on the European side that are going to be mainstays for years. Rory's still got tons of time left. John Rahm obviously is going to be a staple for years to come, and I believe Victor Hovland is as well. Really impressed with him. So, it's going to be interesting going forward, man.
Yeah, and like you said with the captain's pick, so could we say that maybe that a Ricky Fowler or Matt Kuchar, Phil Mickelson might have played a couple of times more than they should, just because they got just so much years of experience, and you hated not to see them even that. So they were basically, I mean, Phil was basically taking up captain's picks for last probably 4 selections. So, it's like you said, I mean, that top to bottom USA this year is just amazingly talented. I mean, at any moment, anybody on that team could be anybody on the other team. I felt like I don't really think it really had a weak link, and like we said, a Patrick Reed and a Webb Simpson weren't even there. So anyway, let's moving on from last week. A couple weeks ago, we had a tournament, Joe. It feels like it's been a lifetime already.
Yeah.
Our man Scott Stallings tied 6th. It was it was an exciting tournament, Joe. Anything you want to take back from it?
Not a lot, man. As you mentioned, it feels like it's been a decade ago, but our boy Stallings was up there. Great win for Max Homa, his 3rd win. So huge kind of benchmark win for him. Mito Pereira, a guy we talked about a lot on the show, who we'll talk about this week, I'm sure, a rising star, played extremely well. Had a solo 3rd there. So a little bit of crossover between that golf course and the one we're going to talk about this week. But just looking forward to getting into it, man. Golf's back. Yes, there's football here, but golf is back. And I want to remind all you guys, this is a really good time of year to get a leg up on the competition. A lot of the kind of the big time DFS players, the guys that max enter these tournaments, they've got one eye on football. Believe me, they do. And you got a lot of casual fans that are maybe spending some of their football winnings on golf, trying their hand at golf. So it's a really great time to hop in, double down on your research, and grind these tournaments hard. There's definitely an edge there.
Yeah, Maverick McNeely, Minto Pereira. I know we talked about them on the pod a couple weeks ago. We're going to mention Scott Stallings. I'll tell you what, Maverick McNeely, Scott Stallings for me, Joe, I'm always going to look at him in fields similar to this. So anytime that we see a second tier field and they're going to be in the tournament, even a Max Homa, Patrick Rogers, we're going to talk more about them than usual. and you might actually get a pretty good deal on them. I think Stallings was in the 6K range last week or last tournament. So moving on to this week, guys, Sanderson Farm Championship, been around for quite a while, had several different names. Tournament started in 1968. This golf tournament is played in Jackson, Mississippi at the Country Club of Jackson. It is 7,461 yard par 72. Several different types of grass. Most importantly, Champion Bermuda on the greens. Look for pretty fast, pretty firm. Considering this is going to be played here at the end of September, 1st of October, you're going to get more mild conditions where this was just played even a month ago. You might be looking at 95 plus weather in Jackson, Mississippi. Humid, hot, all above. We might see pretty decent scores this week. Seems like over the years, high teens, low 20s. Like you said, this is not only a time for us to get DFS players to get an edge up on the competition but it's also a good time for these new guys on tour and some of the vets or some that we see, you can play a couple of good tournaments in the fall swing and it carries you all the way to the top 125. I know we saw Peter here from locally, Peter Malnati finished second and third last year in the fall swing, and I thought he finished like top 70, I think maybe top 60 in the points race for FedEx last year. So it seems like we see, I'm not going to say it seems like we see the same names in the fall because we definitely see rookies coming on, but the guys that play this session, the fall swing regularly, we see a lot of repeat names up there at the top of the leaderboard, let's just say. So I'm excited about this kickoff, Joe. Anything you want to talk about the Country Club of Jackson, Sanderson Farms Championship overall? Like I said, been around forever. It moved to the fall session about 4 or 5 years ago. Anything you want to talk about either one of that?
Not really, man. Not a really remarkable golf course. Not really anything that stands out. Par 72, obviously, so it's very important to score on the 4 par 5s. That's where a large chunk of the scoring is going to be done this week. So you want to definitely target guys that can make some numbers on par 5s. A huge chunk of the approach range is going to be between 100 to 175 yards. I think over half the approach shots historically come from that range. So that's something you want to target. Par 4 wise, we have 6 par 4s that measure between 400 to 450 yards. So that's something you might want to circle. And then on the greens, it's kind of weird, man. We've seen really, really bad putters play well and win this golf tournament. Sergio last year literally putted with his eyes closed. I don't know if you remember that, Andrew, but and then we've seen Cam Champ win here. So we've seen some really bad putters do well here. We've also seen some really elite putters do well here. So it's kind of a crazy, weird type of tournament on a really nondescript golf course, man.
Well, you said really bad putters win this tournament, Joe. So there's already 2 guys in the top 5 I'll be looking at on the slate. Let's get right in this 10K and above. Sam Burns, Zalatoris, Garcia, Sunjay M, Corey Connors. Love Corey Connors. Love Zalatoris. If the golf course lines up like we say it's going to, par 5 scoring is going to be important. Both those guys hit it plenty long enough. Both of them hit it plenty straight enough. I would say that neither one of them are we're going to call just set the world on fire with their putter. So this might be a week they can get healthy in the FedEx Cup early on. Joe, top 5 names on that slate. What are you looking for?
Yeah, man, you mentioned it. We're kind of always willing to roster those guys because they're elite ball striking, and that's certainly the case this week as we've seen bad putters win here. Sergio last year being the most recent example, but Sam Burns up the top of the board. DraftKings pricing came out super late today, Andrew. I don't know if you kind of kept up with it, but I didn't think they were ever going to post it. I guess that's because the NFL started now. But when it finally went up, it was kind of surprising to see Sam Burns up there atop the leaderboard at 11K. But after the shock kind of wore off, you can understand it, man. The dude had a really great breakout season last year. Had a win at the Valspar, followed that up with the runner-up at the Byron Nelson. Lost in a playoff in the big WGC Memphis event. And he's got a really elite skill set for the modern game. Extremely long off the tee and a great Bermuda putter. Solid record here. Made 3 of 4 career cuts at the Sanderson. I think he had a T3 a couple of years ago here. So A little shocked to see Burns up there, but when you dig into it, it makes sense. Probably justified. They got to put somebody up there. But I expect a lot of people are going to start their rosters with the guy below him, Andrew. Will Zalatoris. We love him on this show, and I think everybody loves him. Kind of hit a little bit of a mini slump to close out the end of the year last year. We saw a dip in that output, but he looked sharp at the Fortinet a couple weeks ago in Silverado. Gained almost 4.5 strokes on approach, which is kind of more of his baseline, we feel. So I'm encouraged by that. Lock his length off the tee, and we know a win's coming eventually, man. So you almost have to circle Willie Z in this spot. Sung Jae has played well in this tournament. Had a kind of an inconsistent season last year, or earlier this year, but closed out strong, 4 top 25s in his last 4 starts over the FedEx Cup playoffs. And then you mentioned him, man, kind of the other guy that I'm circling in this range, Corey Connors. So we love his ball strike. Very consistent from week to week. Brings that elite tee degree game into play. Finished top 10 the PGA Tour for the season in strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach, and total ball striking. Has a runner-up here. Finished runner-up when Cam Champ won. So he's got some success on this course, and I love the ball striking. So if I'm looking at 10K and up, I think they'll probably be the 2 most popular. But at this point in the week, my eyes go to Corey Connors and Willie Z.
Right on schedule with that, Joe, with our 2. We like their 9K range.
Big surprise.
Yeah, 9K range here. I'll let you go first in this range. Who you're scoping out here? Mito all the way down to Hoffman. I love when you say ball striking and putting really don't matter. I love Hoffman immediately, but go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I love Mito there at the top. I think a lot of people will. I think a lot of people are viewing him kind of like the new Zalatoris. He's the shiny new toy right now that we're all kind of enjoying playing with. But man, it's tough to argue with his results. He's finished top 6 in 3 of his last 4 PGA Tour starts, including a solo third a couple of weeks ago in Silverado. Was great on the Korn Ferry Tour. Obviously earned that Battlefield promotion late last year, and there's just a lot to like with him, man. Just all around solid. But I do expect him to be extremely popular. It's something I'll keep an eye on as the week progresses. If he's going to be like 30+% owned at 9.9K, I think we're getting into, maybe fade territory. So I'll keep an eye on that. Cameron Tringale's extremely solid at 9.4K. I think you can look at him. I'm a little concerned about the lack of tournament wins. To be honest, he seems to never close these things out. But he does give us good production. Same can be said for Harold Varner III coming in really good form. I think he's solid there. And you can make some arguments for guys down in the 8Ks, but who you like in the 9Ks, Andrew? I know you said Charlie Hoffman, but what are your thoughts on Mito? He's kind of our new guy.
I like Mito. He's done what he's done, even in the last 50 rounds, being pretty average or below average putting. So I do like that. I do think it's maybe a little early to start talking 9.9K. I mean, there's going to be plenty of players that have so much better value below him. And I'll start off with, like the guy said, Charlie Hoffman, number 1, strokes gained approach, strokes gained total, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained top or third strokes gained ball striking. Charlie Hoffman, you'll save $900 with that. He's definitely not as good off the tee as Mito, but you're going to save a lot of money with that. He's also putted pretty decently, but I do like Mito. I'm a little questioning paying 9.9 for him at this stage in the game. Is this not a spot where Siwoo's going to pop out to you, Joe? I feel like he's going to get blown right by. This seems like I know this current tournament said it has a little bit of a Donald Ross feel to the design, and he's more. It's not usually his style of course, but I guess you're kind of staying away from the par 5 standard. I like Cameron Davis overall. I think he's a great young player from Australia, and he'll be probably on the President's Cup here in 2 years.
Yeah, he's an explosive player. I like the upside with Cam Davis. He's had a couple good finishes in this tournament before, and you start looking at pivots, man. If Mito is as popular as we think, I mean, there's some nice GPP pivots in this range that maybe you're embracing some volatility with, but they definitely have some upside, and a couple of those guys you named, Andrew.
Yeah, so moving down to the 8K range, it's going to get real dicey real fast here, guys. I really don't even know anybody I really would even like. Matt Wolff possibly, but we don't ever at this point in the game, we don't ever know where his head's at, in my opinion. But this golf course seems like a perfect fit for a guy with his tools. Hit it far, par 5, get streaky, make a lot of birdies. If I was throwing darts at a dartboard, I definitely would want to land on Matt Wolff. But we don't know where his head's at. So if you want to go a little bit more possibly consistent, your boy Seamus Power. That's hits it a long ways. Maybe some other parts of his game's a little bit questionable. He can get hot and make a lot of birdies, Joe.
Yeah, we saw him get extremely hot to close out last season. Had a win there and several top 10s. So, I think you can definitely look at Seamus Power, another guy, if we want to talk just consistent veteran. Kevin Strielman had a great year in the majors last year, but kind of ended the season with a thud. Played really badly down the stretch in the FedEx Cup playoffs. But this is a really nice bounce back spot for him, Andrew. Got a really good record in this event, has a top 5 and a top 10 over his last 3 Sanderson starts. So I think you can look at Strielman, even though he's disappointed as of late. Matthew Wolff, maybe the most interesting player, certainly in this range and maybe on this slate. The guy, we've seen him priced, 9.5K, 10K in the past. And I don't know that he's really a different player now than he was then. I mean, even when this guy was winning golf tournaments, we've talked about him a lot on this show in the past, Andrew. Even when this guy was winning golf tournaments, he was still extremely inconsistent, still really volatile, still had a miscut in him at any time. So, taking that into account, yes, you're gambling a little bit, kind of embracing some volatility. But I just feel like you're getting a really good discount on a player with huge upside. This course fits his skill set perfectly. He can bomb it off the tee, kills par 5s, can get hot with the putter. So, we're getting a cheaper version of Sam Burns here. Yes, the floor is lower, but the ceiling is just as high. It wouldn't surprise me if Matthew Wolff top 5 this thing. So I think as a GPP play, he really sticks out there at 8.5K. Another play I really like in that 8K range is Aaron Wise. He's a guy I've been going to in GPPs a lot. He's an absolutely horrible putter, finished 174th on the PGA Tour in putting last year. But as we talked about, bad putters can play well here. He leads this field in birdies or better gained over the last 24 rounds. Has played well here in the past, and he closed out the season with 3 straight top 25s. So I think you can definitely look at Aaron Wise at 8.3K.
Yeah, I struggle with his horrific putting at times. A guy that we did mention, and we don't really know where he is health wise either. Gary Woodland. This would be a perfect golf course for him if he's healthy and good, but we just don't know. A lot of questions in this 8K range. If, like you said, if you want to stay with a more steady veteran look, Strielman, I would approve of that in just about any tournament where the field is a little bit weaker. He seems to be successful. 7K range, Joe. Our guy Scott Stallings, we're always going to talk about him, former winner, I think 2012, when it was a alternate event for the British Open, for the Open Championship. Another guy from Tennessee, Keith Mitchell, like him. Just he hits it very, very, very far, can light up the par 5s. After that, we got veterans in this range, Joe. Any veterans you're going to be looking at?
Yeah.
A lot of the same names.
Yeah, still kind of feeling this 7K range out, Andrew. We've said it on here a million times. This range can kind of make you or break you on a weekly basis. And with the salary scale getting posted late, it's something I'm still kind of sorting through, honestly. But Stallings does stick out at 7.7K. We're obviously homers for him, but it kind of makes sense this week. Coming off a T6 in Silverado, had a T6 in this tournament last year. As you mentioned, excellent course history. So at 7.7K, kind of the first really viable salary saver that pops up for me. KH Lee, we've talked about him before. The guy's got kind of sneaky good upside. So I think you can give him a look there at 7.6. Just a guy that's kind of sticking out to me. And then really, until the lower 7Ks, not many people stick out for me at this point in the week. Kind of as I'm just digesting this salary scale. One guy that does stick out for me down at the bottom, actually a couple guys there, Nick Taylor, former winner of this event. He can get hot. Proximity from 100 to 175 is going to be important. He's very strong in all those statistical categories. And then a guy coming up from the Corn Ferry Tour at 7K there, Chad Ramey. We don't have a ton of stats on him yet, but he absolutely eats par fives up and has a good result in this tournament on his resume. So I think you can look at Ramey there at 7K.
Well, yeah, he didn't even mention your boy P. Rogers, man. I like Patrick Rogers anytime where par fives matter. I will be throwing him in. I'll put him in the green light section. With these vets, though, if you look down Chris Kirk, Luke List, Glover, Piercy, Ryan Armour, probably. I mean, these guys, let's be honest, Joe, would it surprise you if they made the cut, if they missed the cut or top five? You would really not be surprised either way. So with that group, they're just going to have a hard time just rostering those at a high rate, in my opinion. So I do like Nick Taylor, same as I put him in the same thing as I do as Kevin Strielman. When these fields are a little bit weaker, you can find places for him. Another name I like sliding on down here as we get into the 6K range, Olympic medalist Roy Sabatini. He hits it far enough, Joe. His consistency over time has been a little bit questionable, but he gets hot with the putter, man. He can do a lot of things. Grayson Sigg, I think he's just going to – I think we're looking at Grayson Sigg as going to be a player that's going to be don't know about dominance, but be around for a long time. I mean, I don't even know what he finished last week, maybe top 20 or something like that, top 25 or 2 weeks ago. I know he was up there in the top 15 at one time, but just solid player, man. And he's going to be around a long time. Like him. Then there's a bunch of names that I think you can put in the roster selection. I'll just name a few: Vincent Whaley and Martin Laird, Kevin Tway, Camilio, Augustine played well a couple weeks ago. Danny McCarthy has the best course history here in the last 5 years. See, Mullinex kills par fives, probably the longest hitter in the field, Trey Mullinex. And then, I mean, that takes you all the way down to about 6,400, Joe, on some players. I mean, you even got Doc Redman in there at 6,500. What has happened to Doc Redman? Is he done? What's happened, Joe?
Oh no, man, definitely. We're down in the valley right now, AP. We're down in the valley right now. I'm not sure what's up with Doc, man. It seems like just a year ago, man. I couldn't wait to roster him in this event. So that quickly he's really went downhill. We've seen it before. And these young golfers, there's sometimes some peaks and valleys, and we're down in the depths right now. So maybe we can get a little renaissance from Doc coming up during the swing season. Seems like he's had some really strong swing seasons before. So maybe you can get it back going, man. But I like a lot of the players down in this range, Andrew. It's feeling like a stars and scrubs week for me right now. With what's in the 7Ks, I'm content to drop down into the sixes. You mentioned several of the guys I like. The first one being Grayson Sigg there at 6.9K. We've talked about him a lot on this show. Kind of the next great player out of the University of Georgia, I feel like. And you mentioned that he's going to be one of those guys that just seems like he's destined to have a really, really long career. Kind of reminiscent of maybe like a Matt Kuchar, Andrew. Not a guy that has distance that blows you off the page, or a really explosive player, but he just hits it dead straight with a little baby draw. Just every single time he hits the ball, it's going straight. So he feels like one of those guys that's just going to have a really, really nice PGA Tour career. So I love him this week at 6.9K. Another guy off the Corn Ferry Tour I'll throw out at you is Nick Hardy. He's a guy I just love his grit. We've talked about him a little bit on this show. He was a little bit cheaper at Fortinet, but up to 6.9K. He gained over 3.5 strokes there. Had a nice finish. So I think you can look at Nick Hardy. I'm always willing to jump on these guys early. And that's especially the case in this type of field. Adam Shank feels really cheap, 6.7K. Towards the end of last season, he kind of demonstrated what he's capable of, had a really nice stretch of golf there, and has played really, really well in this event. Has made 4 straight cuts at the Sanderson. So Shank sticks out as being underpriced, but I'll kind of keep an eye on ownership in case he does get chalky. Talk about some course history guys, Andrew, some elite putters, some top 1% putters. I feel like it's an avenue you can take to get a little different this week. You talked about our boy Pete Malnati, who's kind of owned this event over the years with a hot putter. JT Poston has extremely good course history. We can chalk that up to great putting. And same can be said of Denny McCarthy, who's also got a tremendous Sanderson record on the back of his putter. So I think these guys are down there. We'll call them the 3 Musketeers this week, AP, down there in the mid to low 6K range. I feel like you can look at those guys and maybe get contrarian in some GPPs.
Oh, my phone cut on there for a second, Joe. We about had Monday Night Football here on the podcast. Yeah, I mean, good putters have had success here. I mean, let's be honest. You get hot with the putter, you make, playing 4 par 5s, anything can happen, Joe. So you get down, like you said, there's been a lot. These guys in the 6K range over the years have played very well at this tournament. So let's just get down to it, Joe. Who's your dart play of the week?
Dart play, man. I feel like I don't think I've actually had him a lot, but feels like he's always right there in consideration. I'm going Grayson Sigg, 6.9K.
Grayson Sigg, 6.9K. I don't think mine's a big reach, but I'm going to have to – I mean, Scott Stallings has played well here over the years, played well 2 weeks ago. Had the Tennessee Cup last week where he hosts a tournament in Nashville at the Grove, East versus West, and it's the best male and female junior golfers in the state have like a Ryder Cup field tournament towards it. He hosted that last week. So good vibes, and headed on down to Jackson. I see Scott Stallings playing well in this tournament. Fields lines up good for him, his skill set to succeed. 77.7K. Joe, if I had to pull 25, my last chip out of the drawer and put it on somebody, I'm going Corey Connors here at 10.1. I mean, if he just puts some mediocre, he can win this tournament. I also wouldn't be surprised, like we said earlier, if Matt Wolff won it just out of nowhere. So I'm going to say Corey Connors with a honorable mention, Matt Wolff. So, Joe, where's your heart at this week?
Yeah, man. Seems really appropriate. I love both those. And yeah, Matthew Wolff's definitely one to circle. If you're feeling a little icy this week, get some exposure to him. I think it's finally time, man. I think it's breakthrough time. I look at guys like Sergio. I look at guys like Cam Champ. Guys that are super long off the tee. In Sergio's case, an elite ball striker from tee to green, and maybe those guys aren't the greatest putters in the world. So Will Zalatoris seems to fit the mold. He looked back to form a couple weeks ago in Silverado. Wind's coming at some point. I think this is a good spot for him. So I'm going Willie Z.
Willie Z, Grayson Sigg for Joe, Corey Connors, Scott Stallings for me. Guys, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like, share with friends. Appreciate everything you do for us, Rotoballer. That is Joe Nicely. I'm Andrew Putters, and you've listened to the Turner Fantasy Golf Podcast.
I've already hit 3 in the lake. It's gone.